Okay, so we are going to be discussing Reaper today. So my name's Dr. Jonathan Cressy. I am, by the way, I am taking my mask off for the presentation so you can hear me. If you want to back up, you can. Okay, so you can reach me if you have any questions at Twitter, Fun Sounds. You can email me, jonathan@fundamentalsounds.com, and you can go look at my company at fundamentalsounds.com. I'm a record label and a production company, and yeah, so I'm also a teacher. Like my main profession, well, I've been in the audio industry for like, I don't know, 20 years now, almost. Long time, since 97. You guys can do the math. I'm not good at math. But I spend a lot of time doing teaching. That's why I love coming to MAGFest and giving panels, because this is what I love to do. So if you have any questions about anything, you feel free to contact me, and I will answer you. So just say, hey, I was at your panels. One of your panels at MAGFest, here's my question, and I will totally answer you, right? So I love to do this, and yeah. Not to mention, I'd love to start a YouTube channel where I do stuff like this, and if you guys have any ideas as to what would be good/different to talk about, then that is also really helpful for me for content, and I can do stuff like that. But today we're going to learn about Reaper. So how many here have actually used Reaper? Well, fantastic. So you are part of the fact that more people know about this now. When I gave this panel, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, most of the people in the audience had no idea what Reaper was. Reaper is a digital audio workstation that is cross-platform. It works on Windows, Linux, and OS X. It even works on an M1 Mac, which is what it's running on now, or what I will be running on. And it looks pretty much the same on everything other than, depending on if you're using plugins that may or may not be Windows only or whatever, it basically runs on everything. I got into Reaper when I started teaching at Frederick Community College and York College of Pennsylvania and a bunch of other places. And I think this really started with York College of Pennsylvania because I needed a digital audio workstation that all of my students could use and run at home so they could do projects. And at the time, Pro Tools did not have a, what do you call it, a subscription, which is not bad for a student. It's $10 a month or whatever, which is less than a textbook. But still, they didn't have one. So this was the easiest way for me to get people into it. What's also really cool about it, and we'll talk about that in a second, is the price of Reaper. I'm a small business, so I paid full price for it. So because that's what you should do, is pay for your software, because this is going on the internet, so pay for your software. However, Reaper also has a indefinite still evaluating thing. So a lot of my students who didn't pay the $60 for a student to buy it, basically you can just keep hitting still evaluating until you decide to spend your $60. Some other interesting stuff though. So we're gonna actually get into Reaper itself, but I wanted to show you some stuff that I found out this morning. Okay, so this came from tyhastings.com, which is the requirement trends for audio in gaming. Let me highlight some things. Okay. Reaper is 38.7% experience needed. It is actually above Pro Tools, which is 33.1. Pro Tools in the music industry, i.e. where I stay most of the time, which is, music for streaming, etc. Pro Tools is still the industry standard. However, so you do need to know that if you're going to be in that, because you're going to receive projects that are in Pro Tools. And so the one problem with digital audio workstations is they don't talk to one another. So if you have a Logic project, you can't open it in Reaper. If you have a Reaper project, you can't open it anywhere other than Reaper. So it's just there are some sort of cross-platformy project-y things that don't really work. But so Reaper has eclipsed that. And then if you look down here, over here, that the digital audio workstation that is most used now is Reaper at 39%. And there's some really, really good reasons for that. And then, of course, we have another infographic from his website that we look over here, that 28% of people require it. It's a software suite requirement. And then down here, 52% of the people polled in the game audio industry prefer this suite over Pro Tools. That's 20%, well, not 20%, but it's close to 20% more. And the reason for that is Reaper is very extensible, it is completely customizable, and it's cheap, and it works. So it's really hard to beat when it comes to being a digital audio workstation. You will see a lot of freelancers in the audio world using Reaper. So if you go on YouTube, there's tons of people like Spectre Sound Studios, although I think he went out of business. But yeah, his studio had to close because nobody wants to pay for someone else to do the recording anymore. But that's a rant for another time. He uses it, and a bunch of other people use it as their go-to digital audio workstation. I personally, all up front here, I don't use it for music mixing. I use it for music mastering. So it's my mastering platform. Because I like it better than Wavelab and a lot of other things. And I'm also going to show you a program that I'm starting to get into, so I'm on a trial license right now, called Kohler Classical, because I do a lot of classical work. And it is a 3- and 4-point editing program that is built on top of Reaper. So you actually can purchase this program that does stuff that there is literally no other program on OS X that does it. Right? Well, I take that back. Sonic Studio does it, but no offense to Sonic Studio, it's totally unreliable and you can't possibly use it in the real world. Right? Anymore. It used to be great, but not anymore. So, this is one of the big reasons why people use it. Price. Okay? Price is a big deal. $60 for a student and or individual, and then $225 for a commercial license, right? But if you're a small business, it counts. $60 for your discounted license, right? And they define all of that. Do what makes you feel good. But the big part about it is the fact that it has that perpetual evaluation that you can do. Okay, so this comes directly from their website. I just threw it up there. But this is one of the really big things. The next thing that you're probably going to ask is, where can I go after this to learn more, right? And because you're going to want to learn more. Obviously, you can talk to me, you can email me, do whatever. But there are some things on the internet that I would trust, and I put them in order of trusting, okay? No offense to the people on this list. The first one is the Reaper blog. Pretty much everybody uses the Reaper blog to read articles about what's going on. And then, of course, you have the Reaper forum, which is probably the #1 place to go. I know I did it in terms of things that I would trust, but the Reaper blog is really good for getting out stuff like updates. Like Reaper is already updated. So like I'm on 6.43 and today 6.44 comes out, and they update every 5 minutes. And I didn't update because I didn't want everything to break before the presentation. However, it's something that happens, and the Reaper blog basically will tell you exactly what changed and what it means to you. So it's super important to read. The forum is great. The thing about Reaper, that there is a steep learning curve, and obviously I can't make you feel super comfortable with it in like 30 minutes or whatever, but the forum helps a lot, okay? Because it does do things differently than some other DAWs. It's a little different. And then finally, there's Reaper Mania. It's a guy named Kenny Joya, and sometimes he can be hard to listen to. But other than that, he has good information. And so these are like the 3 places that I would go to learn about Reaper and just like find answers to your questions, okay? And I'm not affiliated to any of these, so I hope they like that I gave them airtime in my presentation. All right, so let's go into Reaper and I'll show you some stuff and what makes it so cool, because this is one of the things about Reaper some of the stuff about it that's really, really cool. So let's see here. All right, so first things first, let's go over some of the customization of stuff. So the first thing that you'll notice that is if you go into options here, I can actually change the theme of Reaper. And there are people who spend hours online making themes, although now they're starting to charge for them. I'm starting to see people charge for Reaper themes. But like this is the default theme. But I'm presently using a theme called Smooth because reasons, I don't really know why. And it makes it look like that. So it is what it is, right? But it's kind of neat. You can get them to make it look like Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton or whatever. Some of the things in here that are neat is if you look at it, let's see. All right, so here's your edit window. This is where all of your audio exists. You'll notice that tracks are just tracks. Tracks are buckets. They can hold anything and they can hold any combination of anything. So for instance, here is here's a kick drum that I bounced out. This was originally a Logic project and that's why it doesn't work terribly well because I don't have all the plugins in here, but I bounced that out. But then I also, right here, this is a MIDI part. And it's not in a MIDI track, it's just in a track. I could take this MIDI part and I could grab it. Let's see here. Oh, undo. And I could put it up here. And it doesn't care. So what'll happen is it'll play the audio, and then if I put a MIDI instrument up here, as soon as it gets to that part, it'll start playing the MIDI instrument. It has no care what goes there. Logic, you have to select a software instrument. Pro Tools, you have to select either external MIDI or software instrument. Reaper does not care. Okay? And like this is like, so for instance, this is a bass part. And this is just a programmed bass part using Trillion as a bass. Right? So that's all it is. Okay? And that's because we didn't have a bassist when we recorded this tune. So all I did was program a MIDI part in, threw in a software instrument, and Trillion is super realistic and it sounds like someone's playing an upright bass. Right? Let's see. This is another aspect of it that only recently have other DAWs caught up with. This is a folder track. So this track here, strings, here I'll get it up at the top. So this strings, if I hit, let's see, where is it? That button up there, you will see that there are a bunch of other tracks that are feeding this track. So Logic only just did this, or I should say Logic has done it for like maybe 2 versions. Pro Tools only just started doing folder tracks. Reaper's been doing it since like Reaper version 3. Okay? And it's fantastic for organizing things because now I have a string track and I can go, "Hey, I don't want to see all my strings." Right? These are just MIDI strings. And so you can actually feed all of that together. You'll also notice that way up here, I put my 2-bus, which is where I'm feeding all of my tracks to sum together into what I'm listening to. And I have that as a folder track. So you can actually use folder tracks as buses. And what's even cooler than that is you can put audio in the track. So the track can have its own audio that is summing with all of the audio that's going to it. So you can have any numerous kind of permutations of flexibility with Reaper. And that's what's so great about it. And that's probably why the gaming industry loves it. Because if you're making sound effects, you know, sound effects like, you know, for instance, this isn't the game industry, but, you know, Jurassic Park, the Tyrannosaurus Rex was like an elephant and a lion and like 4 other things all melded together to create that roar from Jurassic Park. And so all of those things existed to create that one sound. And Reaper allows you to, like, you could say roar, and then underneath it have all of the things that feed it to make it sound like a roar, and then you have that sound effect that you can then use, as opposed to having in Pro Tools, you'd have to bus it, and then you'd have to bounce it, and you'd have to do all of these other things, where in Reaper you don't have to. And one of the things I'm going to show you in a minute is you could actually create a project of that sound and then import a project into another project. So Reaper has what are called sub-projects, which allow you to build projects within projects. And that can keep things super organized, which is really great. So regular audio, I do have some bus returns here. So I have a plate reverb, and the way you send things is you can do 1 or 2 things. You can use this very helpful routing tree. So you can say, oh, I want to send something here, but I can also go in here and go, oh, I want to receive something. So this is super flexible too. Yes, it's ugly to look at. That's the one thing that everybody complains about Reaper, is that it's ugly. But if you're using Audacity, you won't care, okay? Right? Because frankly, Audacity was great for what it was, right? It was free, it was super simple, it had some extensible stuff, but I mean, this is better. And if you can use Audacity, you can use this. This is just better because you just have more control. The other thing that I want you all to write down, though, is something. If you're going to use Reaper, you have to download the SWS extensions. I forgot to put it in the presentation, and I apologize. Just put into Google SWS extensions. The SWS extensions are a free set of extensions that will make Reaper even better. And I'll show you in a second what makes them better, especially for mastering. But this adds a whole new level of functionality. So any questions real quick so far about just this?
Just a quick question. I think just simply go over the difference between mixing and mastering. Sorry, it's kind of a big question.
Okay, I can do that. I'll come back to that. What was your question?
Is it lossless?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. The other interesting thing about Reaper is it does not care what you put in it. So you can put in something that's 44.1, something that's 48, something that's 96, and it won't care. And it'll just play it. And it like automatically resamples things. If that, so like if you're someone who uses a lot of, like if you're a hip hop artist or an electronic artist that has a track that somebody sent to you that was an MP3, you can dump that in and it'll just play it with your vocals or whatever you've put on top of it, as opposed to like Pro Tools that resamples it, and then if you ever lose that resampled file, then you can never open it ever again, because even if you still have the MP3, Pro Tools doesn't care because it's not the exact file that it made, and it's just very confusing. Reaper just doesn't care. But yes, it is completely lossless. It is totally a professional thing. So let's, yes?
I'm not sure if you're going to go over sub-projects.
I am.
Okay. Are sub-projects, like when you import a project in another project, is that a reference or a copy? So like if you open that project by itself and you change it, does it get reflected in the other?
Yes, it does, which makes it really cool. So let's do that real quick, and then this will bring us into the whole mastering versus mixing thing. Okay, a couple of interesting things with Reaper that we have to be very, oh, sorry, hold on. Wrong thing. Whenever you make a Reaper, whenever you work with Reaper, the very, very first thing, write this down, that you have to do is you have to save your project. And I'm not even joking. Like, you have to save your project. Reaper, the other problem with Reaper is it is completely and utterly disorganized as far as files go. It will dump your files wherever you save that file, the Reaper project. It'll just throw them up into the folder and they're all there. And that's one of the drawbacks. So what you have to do is you come up, so I'm gonna come in here. You have to go to your project settings first, and you have to do some organization. So I'll go to media, and I'll type in audio files or something. So what this is doing is this is telling the path to save media files. Okay? Now you can set this up as like a default project setting, but the first time you do this, I mean, if you don't care, then that's fine, but I care because it gets confusing if you don't. Now, if I come in, I want to save my project. I'll just do save as. These are the options, right? So I want to save this Learning Reaper panel. We'll go Learning Reaper panel 2, and I'm going to save it on the desktop. I want to create a subdirectory for this project, meaning I want to create a folder that the project will go in, and all the files that work with that project will go in it. Reaper does not do this by default. So if you just save the Reaper file on your desktop, all of the files will just end up on the desktop. And then you have to copy all media into project directory. Otherwise, the media will stay wherever you had it. And if that ever gets separated, then your project no longer works. Now, in Reaper's defense, Pro Tools doesn't do this by default either. And you have to go into a preference in Pro Tools and check a box to say to do it. And there's a bug in Pro Tools that they have not fixed since Pro Tools 10, that if you drag a file into Pro Tools, it ignores the checkbox and just is like, whatever, and doesn't import it. So for those of you who use Pro Tools, be careful, because a ton of people will open their project and go, where are all my audio files? And it's because they didn't go. So you do those two things, and now everything will be saved in that. When I drag things in, everything will be saved there. So let's pretend I'm using this for mastering. So I'm going to drag in a tune. Here's Monolith. This is a tune that I've been working on with a musician. I just dragged it in. It creates a track, and we're ready to go. Let's say I want to add another track to this. Let's say I'm going to use that that black and blue track that I was using. So I can go into Reaper and I can go to Insert, and I go Insert Media File. Well, hold on. Before I do that, I should put the cursor somewhere so I can insert it better. Media File. I find the project that I want to add in. So let's do, where is it? Black and blue. And I hit open. It opens the project. Okay. It bounces the project. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time. You have this handy dandy LUFS thing, and now it's in there. Okay. Now, let's say I need to change something. So I can double click on this. It opens the project. I can change something. And then I hit save. And it rebounces it. And this will end up in the project. So if you're mastering something, you can have everything that you mixed, every tune, lined up, ready to master. And then when you are done, like if you need to fix something, because that happens to all of us, right? We're mastering something, and then you just click that, and now that's the new project that I just did. So what's interesting about that is that you can put all of your projects in here, line them up in something that's easy for you to understand, and then when you go back, you can, like if you need to fix something, just go in there and double click it and fix it. and then it just puts it back. I mean, it's really, really cool that you can do sub-projects like that. And this is just the super simple, like I'm just lining up tracks for a CD or something. But think about what you could do in like a game situation. You could have like, okay, I'm going to have a track that's got all my gunfire in it or whatever. I won't pretend to understand what goes into the scripting of audio for video games, right? But I would assume that you need to have files in order to script for that. You know, you have to have those combined audio files. And so you can have those organized in any manner that you want. And this is now an item. So if I want to grab this and bring it to another track, I can do whatever I want with this. Right? I can drag it, put it anywhere, do whatever. And it does not matter. So that's one of the coolest things about Reaper when it comes to that. So and then I hit save and it's ready to go. Now let me open a master here. So this is the album that's going to be coming out soon. It's a, make sure I'm opening it with the right Reaper. It's a classical album, sort of contemporary classical trumpet player. We wanted to, sorry, I don't have all the plugins for this, but we wanted to create an album that had classical instrumentation, but with an electronic, like EDM background. So like that. So by the way, I did this in my other panel. If any of you are EDM artists and are interested in something like that, please contact me because we're looking for composers to create more of this music. And I can play a little bit of what we got from Monolith, which was the tune at the end. But as you can see here, it looks complicated, right? But what this is up here is all of the mixes, okay? And if any of you are familiar, so the difference between mixing and mastering is pretty simple to think about. Mixing is when you're taking the tune and you're making it sound the best that tune can sound, okay? Mastering is when you take a group of songs, maybe just one, but usually a group, and you're making them all ready for delivery. Delivery, i.e. streaming, right? They're ready to be streamed. And that's very, very important aspect of it. Mastering is for delivery, not for making your music sound better. Like your music needs to sound good when you, like if you wanted me to master your album and you contacted me and I got something that was trash, I would email back and say, there's this, and this that are wrong. You need to fix that, and you can send it back when it's done, right? Because there's very little a mastering person can do. But one of the things that I did here is all of these tunes were mixed at different times. So when I brought them all in, I had to make them sound like an album, right? Like that they all go together. And so Wavelab is one of those programs that allow you to do that. And what they do is they use, they have two types of inserts or plugins. They have plugins that happen on the item, i.e. the song, and then they have plugins that happen on the master, which is like where everything feeds into. And plugins on the items affect only the item, and plugins on the master affect everything. Well, Reaper can do that. You see this little green button up here? If I click that, well, and let's make this bigger. Sorry, I have a much bigger screen at home, obviously. So these are all of the plugins that I used on this tune, but it's only on this item. So this is my item plugins. This does not affect any of the other things. This is so cool because that means you can actually go into an item. Maybe it's a drum kit, maybe it's something, and you can change it before it gets to your track plugins. This is stuff that other DAWs do not allow you to do. Right? I mean, this is for mastering. This is a huge workflow because if you notice up here, like, let me get rid of these. Come on. Don't crash on me. Okay. If you notice up here, all of these are processed. And down here, I've recorded all of them because I have external plugins. I have I have external equipment. I don't know why I just called them plugins, but I have external equipment. So I send the audio out of the DAW into the analog world. Stuff happens and it comes back. So I have to have a round trip. But what's neat is I've recorded it here. So I used a track to record what was coming back in. But look what I can do. So I can click up here, and what you will be listening to right now, hopefully it won't be too loud, is the mastered track. So this is what we're trying to do. Okay, so watch what I can do here. If I can come in, all right, so I've just disabled all of the plugins on this, on the track that I'm mastering. Watch what I can do. This is the master track. The unmastered track. This is what it sounds like mastered. Unmastered. So this is another cool thing that Reaper can do. You can mute a track so you don't hear it in the 2-bus, but you can solo it and you can hear it and then go away. No other DAW does that. So that means I can have a track that has no processing on it, something that's normal, right? That what I was originally given. And then I can process it and I can go back and forth to make sure that it sounds okay. And to make it even better, I could come in and I could change how much gain. Like for instance, let me find out how much I gave it. So I added 8 decibels of gain to make this release ready. So I could come in and I could subtract 8 decibels here. So I've just turned the fader down by 8 decibels. Now both of these are gain matched. So you can actually hear what I did. This is the mastered version. Undermastered version. Well, it's still not gain matched terribly, but so you can hear the difference of what each sounds like. And that way you can determine whether your master screwed everything up or made it better, right? Which is huge. Because remember, mastering, 90% of mastering is making something louder so that you can submit to your streaming services. And so when you make something louder, it might not necessarily be better. And so usually, like, if I digress slightly into my mastering, the way I master, is I will make things louder. And then I will go back and I will go, what got worse? Right? Like maybe it's too bass heavy now or whatever. And then I go back and I repair things. And I change things. So you'll look on here, you'll see that I have a limiter at the end, which is what I did to make it louder. But then I also have an EQ with very little EQs to try to repair it. But I didn't use any of this other stuff that I have in here. That's just a standard chain. But that's how I use it. So I use Reaper and its items because not every one of these things is going to have the same effect. So like that has one effect. Here's the effect of this one, right? Different limiter settings, different use of other stuff. See, I have different plugins. And so this allows me to line all of this up like it's on a CD and then put different plugins in each one. That's the other thing that Reaper can do. Reaper can make DDPs, which are the official manner in which you send a CD off to be printed or to be pressed. Okay? Not many other programs can do that. So you can CD text, everything happens in Reaper, and I can do it all from here if I want to. So it's really, 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 really cool in that sense. So let's real quick, any questions about this? I know that this is sort of like, oh my God, there's so much stuff, but I'm trying to like sell you on why you need to use this program. Yes?
Is there some sort of tool, like when you were using it for mastering, that effectively like will auto master a song for you for maybe beginners? Probably would be a good idea.
There isn't one in the default Reaper set, like Reaper plugins. But you could use Isotope Ozone or whatever you wanted to try to use it. They don't have one specifically, but Reaper does come with very useful plugins. Again, they're not very pretty. They don't have cool interfaces and stuff, but they do have them. One really interesting tool, though, that Reaper does have that I'm pretty sure no one else does, is if I come in here and I bring up loudness. So the way you master a tune is you take the tune, you master it to a certain level, and then you have to measure its true peak and its what is called its integrated loudness. So you see all of my integrated loudnesses are all right around negative 23, 25, because when I recorded this, I gave myself tons of headroom when I recorded it, okay? That's too soft. Like, that is perfect for Netflix, but it's not perfect for streaming to Apple Music or Spotify. They want negative 16, stuff like that. What Reaper does is typically and this comes from the SWS extensions, by the way. Typically, you would need to play the tune all the way through in order for you to get the measurement. Okay? What you can do in Reaper, though, is like, let's say I select this item. I can say analyze selected item. It analyzes it and tells me that, and that was this item up here. Now I can come in and I can select this item, which is the mastered item, and hit select. And now you can see that I hit my integrated loudness of negative 16. So with a touch of a button, I can see what I did. Can't do that. Like, there literally isn't another program that does that within the DAW. Like, you could bounce out a track and you could drag it and drop it somewhere and it might tell you, but this does it automatically and it's pretty close. So you can see that my true peak, I don't know why it says infinite, but you know, the true peak is probably -1, and you see all of my different loudnesses, and I'm shooting for negative 16 and basically 9 or 10 over here. I can, if you want to learn more about mastering, just talk to me about it and I can tell you. But it's something that you can do within Reaper, which is so fantastic, because you can't do that in Wavelab, which is the standard software that most mastering engineers use now, is Wavelab. But I would just use this. It's just easier. And if you mix in Reaper also, then, I mean, now it's a no-brainer, because each one of those items that I have effects on, each one of those items at the top on the process track could be a mix, could be a project. And I just drop those in, and there's my CD, and if I need to fix something, I can just double-click into it, fix it, and bring it back, and it's fine, and then it acts as an item. So I can use, you know, effects on that item, because it is an item. And then my, for mastering, my dither goes on the master track. So I have dither on the master track. Yes?
Are those accepted standards for the loudness, like, available in some kind of central location, or is that just something you learn from each of those platforms as you work with them?
Oh, no, they are in each platform, like Apple Music and Spotify, have a FAQ on their websites that you can get all of the stuff. And plus, if you look it up, there are websites that have, like, this is the latest kind of thing. I will say, though, just a quick aside with mastering, always use your ears. Like some of the tunes in here that I recorded out are actually lower than 16. And that was because when I pushed them up to the general standard, they sounded out of place in the album. And you want everything to sound like they're supposed, like for instance, these three tracks here, that's a suite of pieces. And the second track is supposed to be softer, right? Like it's supposed to be a softer piece. So this is loud, this is softer. And even though this looks really soft and it measures really soft, it sounds really loud. So the density of the track just made it just sound loud. So when I actually pushed it up to that -16, it was deafeningly loud. And the entire reason we do this is because the streaming services have a sort of automatic turn down that they turn your music down if it's too loud. They don't turn your music up if it's not too loud, by the way. But that means if you like squish all your dynamic range and you like make it really, really, really loud, then it's actually just going to turn it down. However, if that's your genre, like if you're a black metal artist, that's your genre, right? Like it's just supposed to be really loud. So do what the genre tells you to do. Just don't overdo it. That's all. But yeah, all of those things are out there. So here's another, I'm just going to show you this real quick, and then we can open this up for questions. So I'll save, and I'll quit. All right. So let's look at this. So this is that program called Kohler Classical. And what Kohler Classical, what you're seeing here, yeah, don't want to update because it doesn't work. Okay, so what you're seeing here is, this is a classical piece that I've done. All of these are takes. So I have, this is take 1, this is take 2, or actually this is take 3, I don't know, 4, 5, whatever. These are all takes. And up here is where my final is going to be. And so what I can do, like if I click on this, hello, hold on. All right. Okay, it's going to sound like trash because it doesn't sound good in mono, but which is what you're hearing. But this is a tune that I've recorded. Okay, but I can go between takes. And I'm going to each one of those takes. And as a classical engineer, this is really cool because I can come in and say, well, I like this take. So I zoom in a little bit and I say, I want to start the take, I don't know, let's make it a little bigger. So I want to start the take here. So I hit an in marking, and then I want to put the take out here to like there, make an out marking, and then I come up here, click in here, and I put my cursor at 0. I put an in marking, and then I hit a keystroke, and now I've made what is called a 3-point edit. I took the in and out on one take, and I stuck it up on the master take. And then if I wanted to say, well, I really like this bit better, I can put an in and an out here. And obviously I have no idea where this actually is. Let's pretend it's up here somewhere, like here. I can put an in and an out here, do the same thing, and now I've just edited that piece. That's called a 4-point edit. This type of editing is crucial for people who do classical music. So if you're a video game orchestra and you're recording something, this is crucial because you don't have a click track, right? You have all of these people playing, and every take is going to be slightly out of time because you can't be perfect because you're working with humans that are working together with a conductor who is also a human, as opposed to pop music, which has a click track, i.e. a metronome, that you're supposed to be playing with, right? So this kind of editing is crucial for that. And there is nothing on the Linux platform or on the OS X platform that does this, except for this. And this Kohler Classical is a program that runs on top of Reaper. So he basically made all of these scripts and all of these things that you basically can use this as a separate program. And you can see what's also interesting is here I have Kohler Classical over here. You can see it says Kohler Classical. I can turn on Reaper. This is my sort of vanilla Reaper. And we'll just turn on the mask, the one that I just did. So here's my vanilla Reaper. I'm running them at the same bloody time. And that's the other thing with Reaper. You can open as many Reapers as you want running at the same time. So you could have Reaper in one on a mix, feeding another Reaper over here and recording it. Right? The other cool thing about Reaper is you can open multiple projects. So if I'm in Reaper, so this is the vanilla Reaper, I can open another project tab. So I can have another project going on next to something that's already running. This is crazy awesome if you're mixing, because the thing I run into when I mix in Pro Tools is I'll mix a tune and I'll go, wow, that sounds really good. And I go to the next tune. Wow, that sounds really good. And then I play both of them together and I go, wow, those sound different. Right? And you're like, but they need to sound the same because they're going on the same album. So then you're going to open up the other one and go, oh, I did this, and you change a little bit, and then you have to bounce it out and listen to it. Okay, that's closer, and you're constantly going back and forth, but you can't have two Pro Tools open at the same time. With Reaper, I could have the entire album up here in tabs, and I could be floating back and forth and making them all work, you know, so they go together. Super powerful stuff that you can do in Reaper. So we've got about 10 minutes. The panel was supposed to be an hour and a half, but it's only an hour. So if you guys, so I'm going to open up for questions now. But if you have any other questions when I scoot off here after I pick up, I'm happy to talk to you. So let's start with some questions.
You mentioned offhand when you were talking about mixing that you played the mix through something and recorded it
Yes.
live in person.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an amplifier? Like, for example, it's got like a box AT50 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, is the idea in that situation basically stick your SM58 at your speaker and record it so that it doesn't peak?
Oh, no. So I have a set of equipment. So like I have external reverberation devices and EQs and things that I like the sound of that don't exist in the digital world. And so what I'm doing is I'm feeding out of Reaper into the real world, going through those things, and then popping back into Reaper. Like I have there's a reverb called the Quantec 24092 or something, or I don't know. 2402, I think. It's a fantastic reverb, but they don't make it anymore. And there is no digital version of it. So you're just kind of stuck with using it externally, which is terrible when you're trying to be real fast with things because you actually have to play through the entire tune. So if it's, you know, a 10-minute tune, then you're sitting there for 10 minutes waiting for it to go through the whole process. But a lot of mastering engineers have that. This is called a digital analog hybrid feel. So they'll do a lot of things in the DAW itself digitally in order to be like fixing things that are only done really well with digital stuff. And then if they have things that make things sound nice, like analog EQs and stuff, they run it out that way. Yes.
Two quick questions. I'm mainly interested in editing vocal, like spoken word tracks for podcasts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, first question is there a functionality in this where I can make my listening speed as I edit through go faster?
Absolutely.
Second quick question is, with that crazy cool thing where you can take two tracks and call a folder, if I take that folder and say, okay, now there's this odd section where my cat is knocking over my dishes in the other room, if I edit in that little kind of folder track that spaced out, does that also take out that spot? Like, how does that work?
No, that one you would have to go into the two tracks and cut it out, and that because that. But yes, down here, that's a very good question. Let me scoot this up here. Okay, right here, you see rate. I know it's hard to see. Maybe it's right here. Let me rate. Right now, it's at 1 playback rate, but I can make it go faster. all the way up to 4 times faster, or I can make it go slower. I use the slower a lot when I'm trying to do like classical work, because like maybe there's a really fast passage and I'm trying to hear exactly where the person changed notes so I can edit there. So yeah, and if you right click on it, you can actually save preserve pitch. So now when you speed it up, it's not going to sound like chipmunks. It's going to sound like just they're speaking faster. And that's super helpful. I've done a lot of presentations. So like, for instance, my wife's a doctor, and if she goes, like, you know, everything was virtual, right? And so all of their poster presentations had to be virtual. And so they would read a script, and they had to be exactly 5 minutes. And maybe they're like 5 minutes and 10 seconds or something, and I chop stuff out here and there, but occasionally you just have to speed it up just a little bit to make sure it fits in the 5 minutes. And with preserve pitch, it just sounds like they're talking a little bit faster, but it's okay. Not like they're talking a little faster, like it doesn't do that instead, right? Which is super helpful. So yes, you can definitely do the rate and preserve pitch, and so you're not sitting there all day editing things. They also have strip silence and things where you can go in and just say, okay, I want you to remove everything that is not above a certain amount. That helps if you're just trying to be quick about it. But yes, there's tons of things. Yeah, actually, I think you had a question?
Oh, I want to say that if you're using like hardware, you can also use the render queue to bounce things like at a different time.
Yes, real quick. That's right. Well, and this is another interesting thing. See up here? I can't. Do I have this on? Nope. Okay, see how it says monolith up here, and then there's a marker that says exclamation mark 013. This is actually called a marker action. What that marker action says, it says record. And then this marker action at the end says, actually it says it's start recording, and then I have a stop recording over here. And so what I can do is I can hit record, hit play, and it'll play through the entire CD. And every time it passes one of those markers, it will stop the recording and start it. So I can record out my whole CD and have it in chunks. What you were referring to, the render queue, is if you go into the region marker manager, you'll see all my regions. And if I want to bounce these out, I can go to render matrix, tell it all to small screen. I can tell render out all of the master mixes from each one of these regions. And then when I go to the render, I can tell it, render the master mix by project regions. There are 8 regions. It'll bounce them. This is my, I want region number, underscore region name, underscore bit depth, underscore sample rate. Hit go, I can leave, and it'll just render it all out for me, and I don't have to worry about it. So absolutely. This is better. This works better on offline bounces than online bounces. So that's super helpful. Yes? Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason you don't use Reaper for mixing?
Okay. 2 big reasons. Actually, let's just go with the first reason. The first reason is because I don't like the way Reaper does take management. So the way Reaper does a take is, let's say you're doing a vocal part, right? And you're singing, and you're la 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 la, right? And it stops. And then you're like, okay, I want to re-sing that. And you sing over it, and it'll create a lane that all of your takes go in. Okay? And they just kind of bounce. In fact, I think I have something I can show you take lanes, possibly. Nope, apparently I only recorded them once. Could have sworn here it is. So these are ones that I recorded twice. That was the first time I recorded it. That was the second time I recorded it. So these are take lanes. The problem with Reaper and take lanes is it works really good to make fast comp tracks, meaning tracks that you've put together from multiple takes. However, if you want to take something that happened later on in the take and put it earlier in the take, it's really hard to do. Pro Tools, unfortunately, has the best way to do that, and it's called playlist editing. And basically, every time you do a take, it creates a new item, much like a take lane, but they're independent. So you can move them, like they're almost like independent tracks. So you can move things around and it won't matter. But in Reaper, you can't do that. If I cut this, it cuts this too. So if I slice it, it'll slice both. And it'll say, oh, well, you want this part of this and that part of that. And you're like, well, no, I want this part to go way over there. And it's harder to do.
To add to that, I want to know what your opinion is on you can make it so it takes record to a new track.
Yeah, you could do that.
And so theoretically, you can put that under a folder and then edit the folder.
Yes, it's just much more time consuming as opposed to Pro Tools. Not to mention, because I spend a lot of time in professional studios, like 99% of what I do are Pro Tools projects. And so what I do is I use Pro Tools to do pop editing and mixing. But I use Reaper to do all of the mastering. I use it to do classical editing and mixing, because you're not dealing with takes. And so I go back and forth. But that really is the big reason, is because takes are not done as well. By the way, Logic does takes in the exact same way, and I hate Logic for that reason also. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't use it for that reason. And but again, 90% of my work is in a professional studio where I get Pro Tools tracks, so I might as well just stay in Pro Tools. The other thing about Reaper, which is a little difficult, is they don't have the greatest, what do you call it, control surface support. They do really well with Mackie control surface stuff, but not Yukon. And since I own a Yukon system, you know, I'm old. Like, I like to touch faders and move faders when I mix, and so it's just a little bit nicer of an experience. But that's really the only reason. It's the takes and it's that. But if you have grown up using that take system, you'll go to it really easily and it won't matter. So that, I mean, it's actually, I'm just lucky to be able to use all of them. So it is what it is. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I saw it with Reaper, so
Okay.
I would like to take it.
Is there some? I thought there was a question over here. Did you have a question? Yeah.
I did. Not really mixing or mastering related, but what is your preferred method for backing up all the files that you work with?
Oh my God. Okay. No, it's a fantastic. I almost lost my entire life's work like 4 months ago. So my primary is I have Dropbox. I use Dropbox as a way of syncing files between computers and sharing files with clients. As you can see here. So, like, if I go into fundamental sounds, here are all of the present artists that I have that I'm working with, and here are all of the clients that I work with. And I use Dropbox a lot. I also use a server that I run at my house that I back up. So basically I'm doing what YouTube people do, which is I run off of a server. So I have a server running with SSDs, and it's basically my hard drive, and everything is on that. And then nightly that backs up to another server. All right. So, and then every month I go and, like, as soon as the project's done, I back up to tape, and you don't have to do that, but man, I almost lost everything, and I went like total backup nutsy. Like, I just was like, everything needs to be backed up. I've got it on 3 different things. I got things on CDs and on tape and all sorts of stuff. So but Dropbox is #1 for me. And then the only problem with Dropbox is they got weird privacy stuff going on, and it's a little strange. But one day I hope to have my own Dropbox server kind of thing going on at my home network, and I'd be able to do that. So, but I hope that answers your question. However, I also put things on external hard drives, but I have left said external hard drives in studios and driven back to Little Rock, which is where I live now, and then had to call the studio to have them FedEx me my USB drive that had like everything that I was working on in that studio. So again, like, this is why I'm going nuts, because as I get older, I seem to be losing more and more things. Yes. It will be on Apple Music and Spotify and all of that. So I'll put a release on my Twitter, and you can get it, but it'll be there.
I don't know if this would take a really long time, but you had mentioned, actually you had mentioned that you could do takes that would record to new tracks. How would you go about it?
It's a single setting when you right click what's in the options menu.
Yeah, it's in the options menu. So instead of having takes go to take lanes, it's now takes go to new tracks. And every time you do a take, it'll just drop it to a new track. So yeah, you could very well put a folder called vocal and then just start doing takes. With that empty one being the vocal take, and then you can start comping up to that if you wanted. But again, Pro Tools has like a button. You highlight it and hit up, and it goes up to the comp take. Highlight, up. And so it's just so easy to do takes fast.
Yeah, my cousin that is a little pretty easy, and I take a lot of takes.
Well, right. I mean, we all do. That's sort of the thing, right? So, so, I mean, it is what it is. Oh, by the way, before I answer this question, we have a panel tonight at 9 p.m. where I'm talking about the foundations of fundamentals of audio. It's sound. We're going to talk about sound and building a foundation of first principles. So this means the science and the art behind things, how we hear stuff. This is the information you're going to learn in that is going to help you when you seek out YouTube and other tutorials. I always talk about how funny things can be. Like I'll look up a tutorial and like how to make your bass sound really good, and you're like, here's a trick, and you watch the trick. I watch it and I go, no, that's just how you do it. Like it's not a trick. That is just the way. And so these principles will help you sort of sift through the hoo-ha and get the things that are really solid. And this is something that I preach a lot, and hopefully I'll be able to do more of these, but learning the fundamentals, like the foundational principles behind audio, really will help you down the road. Learning, just going and saying, oh, what does this knob do? Yeah, that's great, but if you're not, like in a compressor, if you don't realize that you're operating in the amplitude domain, then you're not really sure what you're doing. Like I hate it when people say, oh, I'm using a compressor to make my track sound thicker. Well, what does that mean? Like why? Like why are you saying that and using those words? And there are reasons behind that, and these are helpful. But yeah, there, yes.
To go back to the kind of the file backup conversation, what is Dropbox your preferred method for going like from machine to machine for a workflow? Like let's say you have a streaming PC and then a music production PC that are separate machines. Like is that kind of your preferred method?
It is now, for now, because it's just the easiest, most streamlined way. Like this is my portable computer for now. It's a MacBook Air. The only reason I'm using a MacBook Air, no fans. I do a lot of recording in the rooms with the talent, and the fans can't be on. So I use something that's fanless, and everything is synced between those. So that's how I usually do it. One more, and then I got to pack up. They're telling me I got to go.
Okay, I have two parts. So the 9 p.m. panel.
Yeah.
Can't make it. So will it be recorded, streamed? Do you have a version like they've done on YouTube? Anything that I can find? Because I want to hear it.
It should be recorded on MAGFest.
Especially by MAGFest?
Yeah, it's being recorded now. Well, it probably will be recorded, assuming.
Okay.
But that's good to know, because if this is something that's very interesting, then this is something that I will put on YouTube. Okay, cool. All right, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to come up and talk to me while we're doing this, and I'll let the pinball panel get set up.